Now, I should come clean and say that I think there are some things that are true about law wherever it's found. That you may say is a very contentious thing. So it's not really, is it? It's one of the logical restrictions I introduced when I mentioned law having nature. Anything that has nature has some things about it that are true wherever it's found. So the question is not whether there are such things. The question is whether they relate to each other in a way that can best be thought of as a theory. And I tend to think no. I tend to think that there are a large number of true propositions about the nature of law. And the most important and interesting connection between them is that they're all consistent with each other. They're all consistent with each other, but they don't reinforce each other. They certainly don't dictate or determine each other. There are a few relationships of implication. There have to be. There are relations of implication between propositions wherever you find propositions. But they're not relations of implication of a kind that make the truth about law susceptible of being regarded in any interesting sense as a theory. Now, let me reintroduce the elided term, positivist. Where does that come from? Well, some of the things that are true about law are things that have at one time or another been branded as positivist truths. And I've defended some of them as truths, and even called them positivists sometimes. And in the process I've disagreed sometimes and other times about which things are true, and also about which things are positive. The first disagreement, the one about which things are true, that really matters. The second disagreement about which things are positivist, I think we're all going to agree that doesn't really matter at all, except in one minor subsidiary respect, which is connected with the theory of how you study things. There really is a possible theoretical debate about how you should study things. But one question that always arises when we're studying philosophical topics is how connected our study of those philosophical topics should be with the history of the ideas that we're debating. And it's very hard, I think, to discuss some of the large questions in philosophy without discussing the history of those large questions. I don't mean that one should replace the study of the questions with the study of the history of the questions. That would be making ludicrous the work of all those who tried to work on the subject before, because they didn't work on the history of the subject, they tried to work on the subject. On the other hand, those who worked on the history of the subject achieved something, even when they made mistakes. And engaging with the progress they already made is an interesting and important way to make progress oneself. And in order to communicate that one's doing this, it can be interesting sometimes to find chains of connection between people that show that they were developing each other's thoughts. And sometimes brand names can come in handy to do that. Now, this isn't true of all brand names. Blairism, for instance, is just vacuous. Factionalism is just short of vacuous. But maybe legal positivism is a little bit more than vacuous. There are a lot of people who have done a lot of work over many centuries in which they learned a lot from each other, and they do belong to chains of thought. And it would be a bit too much of a self-denying ordinance to deny oneself access to the level of positivism to describe some of the chains of thought that connected them. This can create a conflict between one's work as a philosopher and one's work as a historian of ideas, because philosophers are interested, I think, first and foremost in the truth of propositions. Not all propositions. What time the bus is coming, we're not so interested in that. But we're interested in the truth of certain propositions, normally timeless ones, but not only timeless ones. And historians of ideas are much more interested in trends and shifts in currents and thought. And so propositions that are precise enough to unite people for the purposes of the history of ideas are sometimes not precise to unite people for the purposes of philosophical debate. And this is just the predicament that we all face when we write about major currents in the philosophy of law, with the idea of adding something new to their achievements. We have to somehow be able to negotiate our way through both the loose associations that come of historical inheritance and the precise associations that come of agreeing on a proposition spelled out with sufficient accuracy. And in as much as there's a real controversy going on among how to bring our connection with the history of our subject into enough focus to be able to add to it ourselves. It's a very, you might say, it's a very sad thing that we worry about. But in a way, we have to worry about it to get on with the real business, which is trying to solve the timeless problems. So I'm not sure whether that's the right kind of answer.